She said her dad cut her off when we got together. I found out he's been paying her rent all along, just so I wouldn't get suspicious. I'll never forget how hard she cried that night. Her face was streaked black with mascara, the kind that clung to her lashes in spiky clumps when it dried. She was curled into my chest like she wanted to disappear into it, shaking so bad I thought something inside her had broken. He said I had to choose, she whispered, him or you. Her voice cracked on you. I held her tighter, let her sob until her breath hitched and her throat rasped. We sat like that on the edge of my bed, the city bleeding through the window, her coat still on, hair matted against her forehead. I chose you. I believed her, of course I did. What else was I supposed to do when the person you love tells you she just lost everything because she wouldn't let go of you? She said he called her dramatic, said she was chasing delusions. That if she moved in with me, she'd be dead to him. So I told her, then let him disappear. We could build something from the ground up, just us, no help, no strings. She nodded into my chest like she believed it. I remember thinking that was the moment we became real. Not when we kissed the first time, not when she said she loved me. That night, with her knees pulled to her ribs and her eyeliner on my shirt, that was the beginning. It felt like we were choosing each other against the world. It felt brave. It felt right. We figured it out. At least that's what I told people. That's what I told myself. I picked up extra shifts, took freelance work I didn't even like. Added her to my health insurance plan quietly without making it a big moment. She offered to get a job, sure, said she'd start applying once she was a little more settled. I didn't push. We split the groceries, kind of. She'd Venmo me half sometimes or grab things from Trader Joe's if she happened to be out. But it wasn't even, not really, and I didn't care. When her birthday came around, I booked us a cabin upstate. She cried again, different this time. Said no one had ever done something like that for her. I watched her spin around the kitchen in thick socks and my hoodie singing off-key while she made boxed mac and cheese, and I thought, this is what building something from nothing looks like. Friends joked about it, said I was playing house. She really let you go full husband mode, huh? I laughed, shrugged it off. To me, it wasn't a performance. It wasn't about pride. It was about showing her she didn't need her father. That she didn't need anyone but me. When rent hit, I handled it. When the Wi-Fi went out, I fixed it. When she cried because she missed her dog back home, I found a shelter downtown where she could volunteer. Every time I stepped up, she looked at me like I was pulling her out of a fire. And every time she looked at me like that, I thought, this is love. This is what it means to be chosen. Your dad's really not talking to you. The words came out soft, half a question, half a check-in. She was halfway through a plate of ravioli, took a sip of wine before answering. His loss, she said, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand. I waited, gave her space to say more. She didn't. Just leaned back in her chair, twisted the stem of her glass between her fingers, and looked out the window like the view was more interesting than the conversation. It was the first time I'd brought him up in months. I kept thinking maybe there'd be a crack in the story, some small inconsistency, but she played it the same every time, calm, detached, unbothered. I mean, she added, I get it. He doesn't like not being in control. He thinks love should look a certain way. He's obsessed with status, appearance, all that shit. I nodded. You don't have to explain, I said. No, I do, she looked at me again. Because I know how it sounds, but he's not some soft, sad dad waiting for a phone call. He made his choice too, so I made mine. There were no pictures of him in the apartment, no stories, no contacts saved. I once asked what the D in her middle initial stood for. She said she didn't remember. That night, we watched a movie in bed and she curled up tight beside me like she was hiding from something I couldn't see. I kissed the top of her head and thought, whatever she lost, I'll replace it. I didn't ask about him again. Not then. Her phone lit up on the counter. Mine had died 20 minutes earlier. Classic timing, GPS at 3%, ride home unclear, and nothing but a dead screen staring back at me. She was in the shower, music playing just loud enough to drown out a knock. I reached for her phone without thinking. Just to check the time, just to call myself a ride. It unlocked without a passcode, and then the notification hit. Transfer received from RD $1,500 memo. Same date as discussed. The screen dimmed before I could read it again, like it was never supposed to be there in the first place. I just stood there, holding her phone, mind blank. Artie, her last name started with a D. So did her father's. I didn't move, didn't breathe, just kept staring at the screen like it would flash again and tell me I'd imagined it. But I hadn't. 1500, same date as discussed. I put the phone down exactly where I found it, back against the charger, screen face down. When she stepped out of the shower, wrapped in a towel, humming, she smiled at me, leaned over to kiss my cheek, asked if I still wanted takeout. I said sure. My voice sounded normal, my heart didn't. It's just an old friend, she said, tying her hair up without looking at me. I'd waited until after dinner. After she laughed at that dumb movie. After she slipped into one of my shirts and curled onto the couch like she always did when she felt safe. I asked about the name, calm, not accusing, she didn't flinch. Artie, I said, she smiled. From my internship, finance guy. Weird but sweet, he helped me out a few times when I was broke, one of those guys who tries to fix everything with money. Too easy, too fast, she reached for the remote, already changing the subject. You want to watch something else? Or are you gonna fall asleep again in 10 minutes? I watched her laugh, heard my own voice answer something harmless, but in my head that number was already locked in. 1500, same date, same language. And the way she answered, without a beat, without a blink, like it was a story she'd practiced. I didn't press her, not that night. I just watched her tuck herself against me, warm and easy and still humming from the wine, and I thought, if it's nothing, she'll bring it up again. If it's something, she'll bury it. She never mentioned it again, so I started watching. The file wasn't even hidden, just left open on her laptop, half minimized behind a search for dressers. She was in the shower again, always 20-minute showers, always with music loud enough to miss a bomb going off. I didn't mean to look. I just moved the mouse to check something on Chrome, and there it was, bank statement, PDF. The logo hit me first, same bank she used to pay her half of utilities. I knew the layout, knew the rhythm of the rows, then I saw it. 115, transfer received $1,500 memo. Standing support. 1215, transfer received $1,500 memo. Standing support. 1115, transfer received $1,500 memo. Standing support. 3 months. Same amount, same day, same exact wording, and suddenly the number wasn't just a glitch on a phone notification. It was a pattern. I clicked back further. October, September, August, all there, all identical. And all before I ever brought up Artie, the date jumped out at me now, always the 15th. Like clockwork, like a payroll system. Her voice echoed from the bathroom, off-key, singing something light and dumb and catchy. I stared at the screen, $1,500 a month, from someone named Artie. She told me she was cut off, disowned, broke, said I saved her, said she'd never take a dime from him again, but this wasn't panic money, this was structured, planned. This wasn't survival, this was funding. I closed the file, didn't touch anything else, sat down on the couch and tried to remember the last time she looked at me and said something I could actually verify, and I couldn't. You said he cut you off. I stood in the kitchen, hands flat on the counter, voice level, not angry, not yet. She froze mid-step, mug in hand. What? You said your dad cut you off. You cried in my arms, told me you had nothing. That he disowned you. Her eyes flicked to mine, then away, quick, You said you chose me. I did, she said, too fast, I didn't move. I saw the statements. That hit, she set the mug down carefully, not shaking, not denying. Just measuring, it's complicated. My jaw clenched, that's not an answer. She crossed her arms like it might shield her from what was coming. He wanted to help, quietly. He said he didn't want to be in the picture. Just wanted me to be okay. And what about me? I didn't want you to feel, she trailed off, looking down. Watched, judged, I knew you wouldn't take his help. I didn't need to, I said. You already did. The words hit harder than I expected. She stepped closer. I wasn't trying to lie, I was trying to protect what we had. By building it on money you told me didn't exist. Silence. It wasn't like that. Then explain it. She opened her mouth, closed it. It was one line, I said. One transfer, one memo, standing support, that's what he called it. That doesn't sound like protection. That sounds like control. She didn't answer, didn't cry, didn't beg. Just stood there, face pale, lips pressed tight, like the weight of her lie was finally sitting on her shoulders instead of mine. He just wanted me to be safe. Her voice was thin, like she barely believed it herself anymore. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching her fold and refold the same kitchen towel like it was the only thing tethering her to the room. I told him not to interfere, she went on, but he said he'd do it discreetly, that he wouldn't contact me, wouldn't contact you, that it'd just be between him and the bank. So he was in our lives the whole time, I said, voice like a flatline. Just invisible. She flinched at that. I didn't want you to feel like he was pulling strings. He was pulling strings. She dropped the towel. It landed soft on the tile, like the argument had lost its sharp edge and gone blunt. I thought it would stop, she whispered. I thought I could get ahead of it, pay him back eventually, make it clean. How long has it been? Her silence was the answer, since before you moved in. Still nothing, I stepped forward. So every time I thought we were doing it together, splitting groceries, stretching bills, talking through next month's budget, he was underwriting it all from the background like some shadow investor. He didn't tell me to lie, she said quietly. No, but he didn't have to. She finally looked at me. He wanted me to be stable, that's all. He said if I told you it would change everything, that it'd make you feel small. And he was right. Her mouth parted like she was about to say something, then shut again. I walked past her, picked up the mug she never drank from, poured it out in the sink. I didn't want it to be like this, she said behind me. I turned. It already is. You let me play provider while you let him play puppet master. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to, the words cut sharper when they came low. She stood in the middle of the living room, arms wrapped around herself like she was cold, though the heat was on. I wasn't angry anymore. I was humiliated. You stood there, I said, night after night, telling me how proud you were of what we were building, while he funneled money into your account like he was sponsoring us. It wasn't like that. No, because it sure as hell feels like that. Feels like he was testing me, seeing how much I'd take, seeing how long I'd play hero before the mask cracked. I didn't ask for that. But you let it happen. I looked at her, really looked, the sweater she always borrowed from me. The couch I picked out, the candle she lit on hard days, all of it sitting in a room that now felt rented, staged, false. She stepped toward me. Please don't do this. I stepped back. Her hand stayed frozen midair, reaching for something that didn't exist anymore. I kept us going, I said. You know that, right? Rent, groceries, insurance. I covered it all because I thought I had to. I thought I was stepping in where your family wouldn't. Tears welled, but she didn't let them fall. Every time I handed over my card, every time I checked the balance before payday, I told myself it was worth it, because you chose me. Because we were in it together. Her breath hitched, and the whole time, I said, quieter now, he was there, quiet, watching. I didn't want you to feel second best. You didn't make me feel second best, I said. You made me feel useful, like I mattered, like I was carrying us through something real. She didn't speak. I wasn't your partner, I said. I was your proof of independence, a prop. She broke then. Shoulders shaking, hand over her mouth like she could stop the sob before it escaped. I didn't move to hold her, didn't wipe her tears. I just stood there, listening to the sound of it breaking. I'll never take a dime from him again. She'd said it with tears in her eyes. We were sitting on the floor of my old apartment, cross-legged with cheap Chinese takeout between us, and she'd just gotten off the phone with him. I hadn't heard what he said, but I knew it was bad. Her face had been pale, eyes glassy, voice low. He said I was throwing my life away, she whispered, that if I left, I was on my own. For good. I wrapped my arms around her and she shook against me like she'd just stepped in from the rain. I don't need him, she said. I don't need anything he touches. I believed her. Because when someone cries like that, snot in their voice, shame in their teeth, you don't question it, you just hold on tighter. Now I saw it again, that exact moment, but in reverse. Me on the other side of it, same voice, same eyes. Same softness in the delivery, but the words, paper thin. Back then, it felt like the beginning of something brave. Now it played like a scene, memorized, rehearsed. I thought about the night I picked up her favorite ice cream after a long shift. How she thanked me like I'd pulled her out of a burning building. How proud I'd felt. How needed. How blind. The memory didn't hurt, not anymore. It just felt fake. A script written for someone I used to be. He leaned against the kitchen counter with a beer in one hand and his phone face down beside him. The TV was on, volume low, playing something no one was watching. I hadn't even finished speaking before he exhaled hard through his nose. Jesus Christ, Ryan said. She lied for months. That's not love, that's leverage. I didn't argue. I didn't say it was more complicated than that. I just stood there, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the empty glass in front of me like I could find an answer at the bottom of it. She built the whole thing on your back, he went on. And for what? A test. Some manipulative power play her dad dreamed up to see how much you could take before you cracked. I didn't answer. Hell man, you didn't crack, you carried it, and she let you. The words stung because they were true, because they were bare and brutal and didn't come with a layer of sympathy to soften them. Ryan didn't do emotional cushions. He went straight for the rot, carved it out and dropped it in your lap. She used your love like a cover, he said, and you let her. That part made me flinch. He saw it. I'm not blaming you, he added, softer this time. I know what it's like. You love someone, you justify every red flag. You explain it all away like you're writing their defense in a courtroom no one asked you to walk into. I thought I was helping her. You were, he said. And she let you think you were the only one. He shook his head. That's the real betrayal, not the money, not even the lies. It's that she let you give everything while she kept a safety net under the table. I sat down hard on the arm of the couch. My legs didn't want to hold me anymore. She used to say I made her feel safe, I said quietly. Said I was the first person who didn't make her feel like she had to earn love. Yeah, Ryan said. Because she already had someone else paying the price. He took a long sip from his beer and set it down. The silence stretched for a minute, the kind that says everything else has already been said. "You still love her?" he asked finally. I didn't answer. "Doesn't matter," he said. "Love's not the point anymore. This isn't about feelings, it's about truth. It's about whether you can sleep next to someone who looked you in the face and told you he cut me off while his deposits kept your roof over her head." I looked at him. "She'll say she was scared." "She was," he said. "Scared of losing comfort, scared of losing control, scared of losing you if she told you the truth, and she was probably right." That landed hard. "She's not a monster," I said. "Never said she was," Ryan replied. "She's just not who you thought she was, that's worse." He picked up his phone, unlocked it, stared at the screen for a second like he was thinking about texting someone, then locked it again. "What are you gonna do?" he asked. I shook my head. "Don't know yet." "Whatever it is," he said, "make sure it's for you, not her dad, not some warped sense of obligation to the version of her you fell in love with 2 years ago. Make the choice that gets you back." That stuck because I didn't know what back looked like anymore. "She'll cry," I said. "Let her," he replied. "She cried when she told you he cut her off too. Didn't stop her from lying." We sat in silence after that. Him nursing his beer, me staring into the middle distance, heart still trying to catch up to everything my head had already accepted. Ryan didn't say another word. He didn't need to. Sometimes the truth doesn't feel like clarity. It feels like bloodletting, and I was still bleeding. He sat on the bed with the laptop open across his thighs. Dim light from the living room spilled through the doorway, catching the edges of the screen. It was late 2 in the morning maybe. The apartment was quiet except for the dull hum of the fridge and the occasional soft creak of the building settling around him. He shouldn't have been looking, but once the seal had broken, once he saw that first statement, he couldn't stop. Couldn't unsee the numbers, the names, the consistency of it all. Couldn't let it sit like an unanswered question, not when the truth was sitting there waiting to be confirmed in plain black text. He scrolled backward, 6 months, 8, 12, and there it was again. Transfer received $1,500 memo, standing support. Every 15th of the month, like clockwork, even before she'd moved in, even before the night she'd cried into his chest and said her father had cut her off. Even before the speech about being on their own, about choosing him. He felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. Not hard, just over and over and over until his insides stopped resisting and just gave out. He clicked into the details, tried to find a break in the pattern, some gap, some moment where the truth might have changed. There wasn't one. The money didn't start when she lost her job. It didn't start when she moved in. It started before. Before any of it, before the story she told him, before the lie had even fully formed in her mouth. It had been the plan from the beginning. His chest tightened. He looked over his shoulder toward the hallway. She was asleep in the other room. Or at least pretending to be. He wondered what else was planned. What other truths were twisted into half-fictions and sold back to him as vulnerability. She had sat across from him on countless nights, head in her hands, talking about how hard it was to rebuild from nothing. About how much she hated feeling like a burden, about how grateful she was that he stepped up. She told him he saved her. But he hadn't. He'd been a placeholder, a narrative tool, a prop in a story she needed to tell herself. Maybe even believed herself, that she'd cut the cord, that she'd done something brave, but the deposit said otherwise, the money was proof. And now so was he. He leaned back against the headboard and shut the laptop with slow, even hands. The room felt smaller now, airless, like the weight of the lie was pushing in from all sides. $1,500 a month. He calculated it subconsciously. It came automatically. 18 months, $27,000. He swallowed hard. That wasn't a safety net. That was scaffolding, the foundation beneath everything they'd built. She hadn't just hidden the truth. She'd written a different one with his name on the cover. She sat on the edge of the couch, legs pulled up under her, blanket half draped over her shoulders like she didn't know whether she wanted comfort or punishment. He stood across from her, arms loose at his sides, no longer crossed, no longer clenched. He wasn't holding on to anything anymore. "Do you still love me?" she asked. It came out quiet, not soft, not gentle, just stripped down, bare. He didn't answer. She leaned forward a little like the silence might break if she filled it with presence. Her eyes were already glassy, her voice thinner than he'd ever heard it. "I know I messed up," she whispered. "I know I should have told you. Her breath hitched. I wanted to be with you, and I didn't know how to explain that without sounding like he was still part of everything. He was part of everything. I didn't want him to be. But he was." She closed her eyes. "I didn't want to lie. But you did." He didn't raise his voice, didn't pace. He just stood there still like he was watching the last ember of a fire he used to live next to. It didn't rage anymore. It didn't warm him. It just smoldered low and final. I kept thinking you'd ask, she said. Like, really ask, and you didn't, and every time you didn't, I convinced myself it wasn't a lie if it never came up again. He looked at her then, really looked. The way you look at something that used to be precious, that used to be yours and isn't anymore. I didn't ask, he said, because I trusted you. Tears slipped down her cheeks now. Slow, clean, no sobbing, just gravity doing its work. I love you, she said, I never stopped. He said nothing because that was the part that hurt the most. She probably did, even through the lies, even under the manipulation. Even with her father's quiet control threading its way into every moment they called real, she probably did love him. And that was worse. Because if she'd been faking it the whole time, it could be dismissed, mourned, and boxed away. But if she really loved him and still lied, then none of it could be trusted, not the laughter, not the mornings, not the nights she said she felt safe with him. He took a slow breath, held it, let it out. I don't know, he finally said. Her head jerked up. What? Your question, he looked at her, eyes flat. I don't know if I still love you. The silence hit like a slap. She opened her mouth to speak, closed it, tried again, but he was already walking to the door. Not to leave, not yet, just to get distance. From her, from the room, from everything between them that used to feel solid and now felt like sugar glass. She didn't call after him because she knew he didn't need more time to think. He needed time to unlove. The call came from an unknown number. No voicemail, no text, just one ring unanswered. Then another the next day, then again. He picked up on the third try more out of exhaustion than curiosity. Hello. A pause, just a breath, then. I was only trying to protect her. The voice was low, controlled, unapologetic. It took half a second to place it. The cadence was familiar in a distant, documentary sort of way, like the sound of authority more than memory. Her father, I'm not calling to argue, the man said. I'm calling to explain. I don't need explanations, he replied, trying to keep the heat out of his voice. You do, the man said. If you're going to walk away, I need to know you're doing it with full understanding, not emotion. That was the first clue, the way he said emotion like it was a disease. I watched, he continued, not directly. I had someone keep an eye on her finances, not to interfere, just to make sure she wasn't falling apart. You mean to make sure I wasn't a mistake? A pause, if you want to put it that way, the man said, cool as glass. Yes. His stomach turned. So all of it, the money, the timing, the secrecy, was about testing me. Testing her, the voice corrected. And you, incidentally, you didn't fail, you worked hard, you sacrificed, you showed loyalty. But loyalty built on misinformation isn't real. That was her test. You played God with her life. No, he said, I played chess, there's a difference. The line buzzed faintly. Somewhere in the background, a clock ticked. I wanted her to grow up, the man continued. She's been emotional her entire life, idealistic. She falls in love with stories more than people. You were another story, I knew how it would end. But I had to let her learn. He didn't speak, he couldn't. I'm sorry you got caught in it, her father said, but you were never the point. That was it, that was the line that made everything crystallize, not the lies, not the silence. Not the half-truths or the monthly payments or the look in her eyes when she asked if he still loved her. It was this voice, this calm, surgical voice on the other end of the phone, declaring that none of it had ever really been about him. The father hung up without waiting for a response. Of course he did, he always controlled the ending. She stood in the doorway, barefoot, eyes puffy but dry. The sleeves of her sweatshirt hung past her knuckles. She didn't speak at first. He didn't move. The night was quiet around them, city hum outside the windows, fridge ticking through its defrost cycle, the distant thump of someone dragging a trash bin across concrete. Nothing close, nothing human. She stepped inside. He was sitting on the couch, one leg pulled up, an unopened book in his lap, still dressed like he hadn't planned on anything except surviving the evening. You talked to him, she said. Not a question. He nodded once, didn't look up. I didn't know he'd do that, she whispered. He let the silence answer. He's always thought he knew better, but I didn't know about the call, I swear. He looked at her now, really looked. But you knew about the test. Her mouth opened then closed. Not exactly, not at first. But later. A slow nod, he stood, the book slid to the floor, spine first. You let me live in a lie, he said. You let me think we were partners, that we were fighting together, that it was us against the world. I thought I could make it true, she whispered. You let me become someone else so you could pretend to be someone you're not. Her voice broke. I didn't mean for it to go this far. You let me carry the weight, while you had someone behind the curtain holding your safety line. She shook her head. It wasn't about the money. No, he said, it was about control. His, yours, maybe both, but it sure as hell wasn't about us. Tears welled again, but she didn't cry, not this time. I love you, she said. He didn't flinch. This wasn't a relationship, it was a case study. Her breath caught. He didn't stop. I was the experiment, to see what a good man does when he's handed half-truths and praised for swallowing them. She took a step forward. Please. I took care of you, he said. I carried the weight of something I didn't even understand because I thought that's what love was. It is, she choked out. It was. No, he said, it was a performance, and the worst part is I gave you everything, not just money. Not just time, me, the real version, no edits, no filters, and you gave me what? The version you thought I could handle. She collapsed onto the arm of the couch. Shoulders trembling, head bowed, he watched her. Felt the ache move through his chest like a slow bruise blooming. But he didn't sit down, didn't comfort her, didn't offer one more ounce of belief to someone who'd spent months teaching him how to mistrust everything that felt sacred. He just stood there surrounded by the ruin of something he once thought was home. He packed quietly, one duffel, a few clothes, a folder of documents, toothbrush, chargers, socks, that was it. He didn't touch the photos. Didn't even glance at them, the ones on the fridge, the ones in frames, the ones she printed in black and white like it made the memories feel more permanent. They weren't. None of it was. The apartment was still. No music, no movement. She'd left for a walk after last night's conversation, if you could call it that. He didn't ask where she was going. She didn't ask if he'd be there when she came back. He pulled his hoodie over his head, sat on the edge of the bed for a long minute. The same bed where she first said she felt safe. The same room where she cried, where she whispered confessions that were only half-truths wrapped in emotion, where he thought he was building something permanent. He stood, walked to the kitchen. Set the key on the counter. No note, no goodbye, no explanation, just the key. She'd understand. She might even be relieved, or shattered, or indifferent. He didn't know anymore. That was the part that haunted him, the not knowing what was real, what was an act, and what was just survival disguised as connection. He reached for the door, looked over his shoulder one last time, not at her, just at the space. The dented corner of the coffee table from when they moved it wrong, the window that whistled in the winter, the plant she always forgot to water. None of it belonged to him anymore. He stepped outside. The hallway was cool, dim. Smelled like old paint and someone's dinner. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Not a slam, not a bang, just a small final sound, and that was that. The group chat lit up the next morning, not with drama. Not with fireworks, just the kind of quiet, confused curiosity that comes when something's cracked in a place no one expected. Jules. Hey, what happened? Is everything okay with you and M, Cameron? You guys didn't show last night. Thought you were coming to the thing. He stared at the screen, thumbs hovering. No panic, no bitterness. Just that weird calm that comes after you've already pulled the pin and let the grenade go. He typed, she lied, I left, 3 words, nothing more. Another message came in, Jules. Wait, what? What do you mean? He didn't answer right away, didn't feel the need to fill in the blanks. He wasn't here to defend himself. He wasn't here to burn her name down either. He just didn't want to be part of the illusion anymore. Another ping, Cameron. Damn man, I'm sorry, then a pause, a minute, another message, Jules. Do you want to talk about it? He stared at that one a little longer, then just replied, I'm good. Because he was not okay, not healed, not clear-headed enough to dissect the last 18 months without wanting to throw something. But good enough to know that if he kept re-explaining the damage, he'd keep carrying it. Another ping came in, Dev. Let us know if you need anything, seriously. He put his phone down, let the silence settle around him. There were no more explanations to give, no versions of the story that would make it less messy. She'd built her narrative, he'd walked out of it. Now he didn't owe anyone a plot twist. The email came first. Subject line, please read. He didn't, then the voicemail. 2 minutes 46 seconds, her voice soft, unsteady. Breathing heavy like she recorded it walking in circles. He didn't listen to that either, but it was the shared doc that got him. I had no choice. Google Drive notification, at 2:07 am. The middle of the night, like shame came knocking when no one else could see it. He almost ignored it, almost, but curiosity's a bastard. He opened it, one line, bolded, centered. I wasn't trying to fool you. I was trying to hold on to both versions of safety. He closed it, clicked the tab shut, stared at the screen, opened it again, scanned down, no formatting, no tears on the keyboard, just paragraphs, structured, clinical. Like she knew how to tell her side without sounding like she was begging. It was all there, her justification, her guilt, her version of the story where she was just trying to stay afloat. She said her father threatened to cut her off completely unless she let him stay involved. Said she tried to phase the money out but didn't know how. Said she wanted to come clean a dozen times but didn't want him to feel less than. He stopped reading. Moved the mouse to the top right corner, clicked remove. Closed the laptop, stood. It wasn't rage, it wasn't grief. It wasn't even pain, not anymore. It was the simple clarity that came when a person stops looking for reasons and just starts accepting the result. You don't need to finish the book to know the ending when the middle already betrayed you. She still has him. Ryan looked up from his coffee. The diner was quiet, mostly empty. Rain traced patterns against the windows, blurring the world outside. She still has her dad, he clarified, no matter what she says. Ryan didn't jump in, didn't interrupt, just waited. If she ever really needed backup, he went on, it was never going to be me. He stirred his coffee once, twice, let the spoon clink. I spent a year thinking I was holding her up, paying rent, grocery runs, dentist bills, whatever. I thought I was the one stepping in, saving her from being cut off. You weren't saving her, Ryan said. You were making up for what she pretended she lost. He nodded slowly. I let myself believe it was me or nothing, he said. But it was always me and him. He was just behind the curtain, wiring money into her world like a ghost with a checkbook. Why do you think she let him stay? He didn't answer right away. Because she didn't trust me, he said finally. Not really, she liked what I gave her, but she didn't believe it would last. She kept the backup plan, the net. She didn't cut the rope, Ryan, she just made it invisible. Ryan leaned back. You bitter. He took a sip of his coffee, no. And he wasn't, there was no venom left. No fantasy about getting her back or explaining his side better or making her see the error of it all. She still had her father, his influence. His silence, his presence in the places money quietly sat, she'd always have him. What she lost, what she chose to lose, was the person who actually showed up in real time. The one who was there when the fridge was empty, when the power went out, when she couldn't sleep at 3 a.m., the one who believed every version of her, even the fake ones. I don't miss her, he said, not to convince anyone, just to finally say it. I miss what I thought I was to her. That's usually the part that hurts, Ryan said. He looked out the window. The rain hadn't let up, neither had the truth. The new place was small. Just a one-bedroom with a crooked floorboard by the bathroom and windows that stuck when it rained. No decorations yet, no couch. Just one bag by the door, one chair near the window, and the hum of the fridge filling the silence. He sat in the chair and let the stillness settle. No texts buzzing, no questions from friends, no need to explain anything to anyone, just space. He'd signed the lease without fanfare. Didn't tell anyone where he was going, didn't forward the mail yet, left most of the furniture behind on purpose. Didn't want the weight of memories stitched into every cushion, every cup, every drawer that still smelled like her. He didn't cry, he didn't scroll old photos or click through voice notes or replay the moments where things almost felt right. He just existed. For the first time in months, his body felt like it belonged only to him. No guilt twisting in his spine, no loyalty coiled around his throat, no expectations leaking out of someone else's silence and turning into responsibility. He looked around the empty space. One bag, one chair, peace. That was the word for it. Not relief, not freedom, peace. The slow, sturdy kind that didn't come with fireworks or applause. The kind you only got after walking out of something that kept trying to convince you it was love. He didn't hate her. Not anymore. Hate takes effort. Effort needs hope. And he was done giving her both. He knew now that he hadn't lost her. That wasn't the story. He'd just finally seen her. Clearly, without the story she needed him to believe. Without the tears or the silence or the too perfect timing. Without her father's fingerprints on the pages. Without the version of himself he had to shrink into to keep everything afloat. She was never truly his, not in the way that mattered. And now, sitting alone in a room with nothing left to perform, he felt it in his bones. It was never about the love, it was about the lie that dressed itself in it. He pulled his phone from his pocket, deleted the thread, all of it. Then leaned back in the chair and looked out the window, letting the quiet wrap around him like a coat he'd finally earned. Thank you so much for watching. Please do not forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. One love.